All set. It's 7 o'clock on Monday, October 1st, 2018. This is the Sutton School Committee. Call the meeting to order. First order of business is the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The first order of business is the Citizens Forum. A reminder that discussion or comments regarding individuals should be avoided so as to not violate any individual's rights. Do we have anybody who would like to speak? Okay.
Hi.
Hello?
Hi.
Hello.
So it's summer. Good. Busy. Just a quick question. I missed the last couple of meetings. I don't know if you guys ever went over the survey results from the school. Did we go over that the last couple of times or no? Because I didn't see it on the packet, and I didn't know.
We reviewed them at the summer retreat,
Oh, okay.
and then I do believe there was an email that went out with the results in general sent to the mail list that exists at the school.
Correct.
Right.
And I believe the survey is also on the website?
It is,
Yes.
under the school committee packets.
Do we discuss that at the school committee meetings ever, or?
We discussed it at the summer retreat meeting,
Okay.
but it hasn't been put on the agenda for any other meeting. Is there something particular you want to discuss?
No, I just was curious to
Oh.
find out what the outcome was, you know. what
Oh. Well, the whole survey and all the results are on the
they-
website.
Right, and I did read that,
Okay.
but I guess my big concern was, has anybody said anything about the lack of response? Because there were only very few responses to that survey. So I didn't know if they were gonna do another one, or make it more known to do that survey, because I've talked to several people, and I'm like, what survey? And I'm like, the survey that.
Yeah, we battle against that every time we do a survey,
Yeah.
just very low.
Okay,
So try to change it up a little bit this year with a little lighter in some places, just like a kind of a throwaway answer and some serious answers at the same time to try to get a few more people to, and it's hard.
But part of it too is making sure that we have the right email addresses.
well, yeah,
And
that's a
that-
problem.
That's a big challenge, even now, I know we've gotten better, but, I mean, half of the responsibility is on the parents to get us the appropriate contact information.
We're pretty good. We have everybody's,
Yeah.
for the most part, everybody's current address.
They should be seeing them if they're, receiving emails from the school.
Could be clutter, could be in your junk mail, need to check.
The response has been in line with what we've seen the past couple of
Yeah.
years.
Yeah.
While it's not as healthy a number as we'd like to see, it hasn't changed.
Is there any way that this town, and I don't know how it operates, but is there any way that this town could get the people more involved to come into the school committee meetings? Because I know a lot of people have a lot of things to say. I don't know if there's
We'd
a
love
way-
to.
We'd love to. I don't know if there's a way that you can put it
Cancel
out
the
there,
sport.
or, I have to search hard to find the meetings. Not that I have to search hard, but I have to search.
It's on the schedule portion for the district.
I think what happens is, we have a vision committee meeting that we had last month. We had over 55 people attend. We have a district learning team meetings that we have, on average, at least 35 people attend. And those are more working session meetings that I think people find more valuable because they actually have more of an input on what's happening in the school. Whereas here, it's more policy, budget, whereas the vision committee, you actually have a voice in making change.
Not that I disagree with you. However, I understand what you're saying, but sometimes I find those types of meetings, and I've never been to one, so I can't really say, but in the past, are more of a group of people getting together and, talking about what they like to do, what they like to see happen, but nothing, again, I haven't been, so I don't know. I think you need to have something where, and also in those meetings, not to change the subject, but in those meetings, is there a group of parents, I'm assuming it's all parents in it?
No, parents, students, community
Staff.
members, staff.
Is there a group from every, like, school?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. The next Vision Committee meeting, we'll mention it later, is October 17th at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
So
And where are those?
it will be at in the team room in the middle school, top of the floor, top of the stairs on the second floor, first building on the left, where all the noise is made.
But am I correct to assume that you do welcome people into the school committee meetings?
Absolutely,
Oh, yeah.
Okay,
Oh, gosh.
okay,
absolutely.
all right.
I was just saying at the beginning of the meeting, I wish more people would approach us. It's so rare that someone will say, I know you're on school committee, can I ask you a question? It's so rare.
I'll spread it around.
Okay, good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Next item is the consent agenda, the minutes from September 10th, the bill schedules from September 13th, September 20th, and September 27th. Anybody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor? Opposed?
Got a quick question about the budget last time. Did we get answers on why we were charged twice for uniforms?
We sent,
An email?
we sent an email to everybody the week after the meeting.
Didn't get that one.
We must not have your email.
I didn't get that one.
Keep your card.
Spam
Take me off.
We did, we sent it out. Well, the question is, do you check your school committee email?
Not
Although-
always, no.
You can have that forward to another email address as well if you prefer.
I thought I had it forwarded to my office one. I will check.
Turns out they
Not-
were billed, they were billed for one portion and then they were billed for the second portion.
So the girls' uniforms cost twice as much as the boys? Yes,
I
They-
don't know.
they did.
There may have been portions of it, boys and girls together, that was the larger portion, and then the boys' portion was smaller, but it came in at as two different shipments.
Yeah, 3,000 and then the other one was about 6,000. So I'm just curious because there's also a pattern in spending there that I'm concerned about. So noted.
I don't have it in front of me, but the email clears that up.
Okay, I'll check it.
Next item is the student update. Sophie Briggs and going solo tonight.
Oh no, this one's not on. I'll switch chairs. This one might be better. You switched this one earlier. Okay, this one's better. Okay, good evening. So this month is just like classes have kicked off, you know, the regular type of deal. Sports at homecoming, boys won against Douglas, girls tied, and football lost. Cross country, golf, and field hockey have been postponed to later this week because of the rain. The fields in our town are all real grass, so they got destroyed because it rained Friday night. So we did homecoming at Grafton where they have turf fields, which was really nice. It was a good event and lots of people came, so that was really good. We have PSAT administration coming up this week for sophomores and juniors who are doing that. Also, we have SATs this weekend for a lot of seniors that are doing it. Seniors are also working on a lot of college application stuff with guidance recently, which has also been really helpful. They met with us in our English classes a couple times last week or a couple weeks ago, just to get everybody familiar with the Common App and all the application process, like leading to college, and it's really helpful. In band, we have Professor Greg Spiridopoulos coming to work on a piece with us called 76 Trombones. That's going to be at our concert in winter, and he's coming October 19th to work with us on that. And we're all super excited because he's extremely talented at what he does. He plays the trombone, so that's going to be really great. And then that's about it.
Do we have 76 trombones?
No.
That's great. I think I would just like to officially thank Christina Tamala. I'm sure that wasn't an easy feat, and whoever else helped to move it last minute to Grafton. That was pretty impressive, and it was nice to still have it.
She did a great
Grafton
job.
High School, yeah.
That's cool.
At
Thank you.
Grafton High School.
Could
also.
change one thing
Yeah,
that
in
guidance
Grafton
has
High
been
School.
doing to help with selecting schools. What would you do different?
Honestly, I think they're doing a fantastic job. I wouldn't change anything at this point because they're being very specific to individual students, which I really appreciate. They're making sure that everybody is making appointments who need to have them, and they're making sure that time is available for all the people that need it. But for those who aren't pursuing college, they're also being very open and helpful to those students as well. So I think that they're doing a very good job.
You could change one thing about how the school's working for next year. What would it be?
We always talk about we've been talking about in school council doing a rotation for seniors with like life skills. So making personal finance a class that every senior has to take, learning skills like balancing a checkbook, building a resume, things like that, I think are really important to have just to learn before you go out into the world, and I think that would be very useful.
I haven't figured out how to make that checkbook work yet.
And there is a MIFA financial aid meeting next Thursday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Pretty sure.
Okay,
Because we have Ken Rapp is coming on Thursday, I believe.
okay. So at the school at 6 o'clock, I believe, or 6:30.
Yeah, that's
So-
for parents, I think, right?
Check the school website. Terrific.
Thank you.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you. We're going to skip the item 6 and put that on the 10:22 agenda. Next item is to approve the high school band field trip. Ms. Falvo?
Just to confirm, 76 trombones or
Six.
6?
Yeah.
Close.
Mr. Friend and members of the school committee, thank you so much for meeting with me tonight. I do want to say before I get started, I wanted to invite each and every one of you to our upcoming concerts in the fall. We have middle school band on Tuesday, December 4th, and high school band on Wednesday, December 5th. And as Sochi mentioned, my former trombone professor and mentor at UMass will be joining us for a featured solo piece of his, which will be really cool. I don't expect to see 2 of you there, but it'd be really wonderful to see all of you. So, thank you for that. So I thought rather than go through the entire itinerary for the band trip, I would just go over a couple of the highlights because I know you have the literature and you're familiar with it. But our band trip actually begins Wednesday night with our spring concert. So rather than invite our parents out to multiple nights around that time, I thought it might make most sense to have everyone come at the same time. So Wednesday, April 3rd, we have our spring concert. Thursday, April 4th, the plan is to depart Sutton High School in the morning and visit the National Aquarium in Baltimore. Prior to an instrumental clinic, which was just confirmed today at the Peabody Institute with our concert band. And their director of band's going to work with us for about an hour and a half, which will be great. That will conclude for the plans for Thursday. Friday, April 5th, we will arrive at the Smithsonian Institute in the morning in Washington, D.C. before we perform at the Martin Luther King Jr. Memorial. And then we will walk around and see some of the monuments. And predictions have that around cherry blossom season, which is really something we're hoping to see this time, preferably not in the rain like last time. On Saturday, which is the final day of being down there, we will be in Williamsburg. We have a festival in the parks, which is an adjudicated festival, and sometimes a competition in the morning. And afterwards, the kids will work their way to Busch Gardens, which I think will be a really fun way for them, and it's what we did. Pretty much an identical itinerary to the trip we took 4 years ago. I do want to mention, so before I talk about the cost of the trip, we do include in that 3 full breakfasts and 2 full dinners. Kids will be responsible for any meals that are not in addition to those, so if they're not included, and we just are going to be stopping in places that don't allow for that. We'll also be providing every one of the students on the trip with a band trip t-shirt and an updated Sutton band uniform, which I think will be nice. We are slowly but surely phasing out the tuxedo shirts that we have had for a very long time. So we hope you enjoy what we've come up with. So I will say the total cost of the trip is about $770. It's my hope that by the time we make it to the last payment to bring that down a little bit, but there's a number of factors turning like prorated bus rates and stuff that I just can't predict until a later date. And the other thing I want to make sure I mention is ultimately, we want every student who wants to go on the band trip to be able to do so. And if the financial burden is a little bit tough, I do want to work with those families to try to make that happen. We have one fundraiser scheduled for that. This is the poinsettia sale, but the students that have been in high school band for a year or more have been hopefully preparing for that in the past, and we have about $500 or $600 credited to students for that purpose. We will be taking about 8 chaperones on the trip, including myself and Sue Dane. We will also be taking Bill Gilman, an adjustment counselor from the high school, and Nancy Corey as our nurse, who is quite an institution here on field trips. So really looking for the opportunity to take these kids, and I think it'll be wonderful.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the high school Southern Tour band trip as presented.
Second?
Any questions?
You'll get back Sunday evening. It wasn't terribly late, but it is Sunday evening. The requirement is the students will be back Monday, or did I mess that up?
Sunday morning, it looked like you'd be back.
Oh, is it in the morning?
So we are leaving Williamsburg Sunday morning.
And gave yourself 14 or 16 hours from
Yes.
Williamsburg, which
We
isn't bad.
anticipated
But
Time of arrival like 8:30 or something, and
Yeah.
we did hit traffic in New Jersey the last time. It looked back pretty late, but we do anticipate early evening.
And the requirement is that the kids have to be in the school on Monday
Yes.
under threat of, you gotta do that. Great.
Okay.
Any more questions? No. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Have fun.
Enjoy.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Enjoy the trip.
Next item is the high school update with Ms. McCarthy.
Okay, all right.
Good evening.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, that one's on.
That's-
The other
that's-
one
yeah.
isn't.
Okay. You guys can hear me, right?
Yep.
The viewers at home will just have to guess. So I've been asked to present on a few things happening at high school. First, the results of the NEASR, our NEASC reaccreditation visit from last year, our MCAS scores, and then a couple of initiatives that we have going on at the high school, the most exciting part of which the students will present after I get through the boring stuff. So NEASC, our NEASC accreditation visit, by all accounts, went off well. Feedback from the committee was exceptionally positive, and in the end, the recommendations that they made were recommendations that we had either self-identified or had already been working on. So really dovetailed nicely into the work that we're already doing. I would say that the most critical initiative that they identified is just sort of a mainlining and a sort of a synthesizing of the curriculum documents that we have had over the years. Just a number of courses that different people had touched and worked on, which created different various versions of curriculum documents themselves. So now the departments over the last 2 years have really done an exceptional job of going through and identifying the key learning components of each course, creating common assessments where able, and really trying to hone the documents so that they actually are matching what's being taught in the classroom. That's worked out nicely with our focus this year on making the learning in the class more authentic. So as they're manipulating the documents themselves, they're also putting in some activities that are more, that are designed to be more authentic and less book-based than just learning for the sake of learning, learning for the sake of rote learning rather, but actually learning because it has something to do with the real world. So that initiative is ongoing. The committee identified a couple of strengths for our school, again, things that we have also identified. Our class sizes at the high school are consistently very manageable. We have, we're very appreciative of that. This year we have a few classes that are north of 28, 29, largely and almost entirely due to the odd size of the 10th grade class. So the 10th grade class is about 75 students, and when you start creating schedules, it just creates an odd number of sections for us. So your choices are between having 3 sections of one thing or 2 sections of a subject, and that's make it difficult for scheduling purposes. And so sometimes you'd rather have more kids in an honors class, for example, than in a college prep class where the pace is going to be a little bit slower. But that being said, NEAS did give us accommodation for our class sizes and how the district supports that. They also gave us accommodation for our athletic program and the number of athletic offerings we have for our kids. And just in general, the chair of the committee commented on sort of the overall community spirit, both from the high school faculty, the students, the community members that they spoke to. They really got the sense from their time here that we're all on the same team, we're all pushing in the right direction, and that when we have problems, we kind of work together as a group to solve them rather than try to place blame, that we're all trying to figure out, come up with proactive solutions to the problems, and then push the best version of the school forward for the kids. From here at this point now, we have it's what's called a 2 and a 5-year targeted plan. I'm actually going to a workshop on October 24th, I want to say, because it just never stops with NEASC. So I'll go out to there and they'll talk to us about, you know, how they will be monitoring our 2 and 5-year plan, what kind of reporting we'll have to do, what kind of progress we need to be making on those documents. And in 2 years, we'll have to give a report. In 5 years, we'll have to give another report. If they don't see significant progress on the things that they've identified as critical, then they would come back out and tell us to do a better job at that. And I don't anticipate nothing that they've identified is so burdensome that we can't manage it with the professional development time we have and the staff time that we have built into the schedule.
Do we have anyone from our staff who's on a NEASC accreditation committee going to another school?
I went in advance of them coming to us, and I want to say Sue Heber had gone in the past. I want to say Rich in the long ago past, 2 cycles ago.
Currently, we don't have anybody
No,
going.
'cause
Okay.
I mean, the way it generally works is that people go on those visits when their school is coming up due.
Okay.
So that now that we've gone through the cycle, we kind
We're
of get a
done.
little bit of break.
Okay.
And then in 10 years, we'll be right back and having the same discussion that we had a few years ago as whether or not we want to continue with this. NEASC has said that they're making significant changes to the reaccreditation process. We'll see.
Can I just,
We've had this discussion ad nauseum, so I don't feel there's anything to add.
you had asked me for an update, so while he was talking about class size, there are 5 sections over 25. 2 US History Honors classes, 1 AP Language class, Anatomy, English Honors, and US 2 Honors. So those are the classes, and there are 10 sections with under 12 sections with under 10 students. So you would ask for that, I just thought I'd share that now.
Any questions about NEASC? Really want to get into business, so. Feel free.
You said you weren't going to add anymore.
Thank you. Move on.
We'll move
Thank
on.
you.
We'll move on.
We recently received our MCAS scores back from the state. 98% of our students were advanced and proficient in both English, math, and science. We had only 2 students receive a need improvement rating in English, 2 in math, and 2 in science. Right?
5 in math.
5.
It was 5 in math. I was mistaken.
You sure you're looking at the
Yeah,
right time?
so it's 97% are advanced and proficient and 94% in math. I mean, the scores are some of the best scores we've ever had on the MCAS test.
Some of those scores, some of the 5 scores might be students who were retakes. Like, if you don't pass it, you can continue to take the exam in after you pass it. So, like, for example, a senior, I know one of the seniors who was indicated on the report, she actually took it, didn't pass it, but then passed the retake, so it ended up counting for her favor, so she had to graduate. Either way,
Outstanding.
like Mr. Friend said, since I've been there, they're definitely the best scores that we've ever seen. A lot of hard work went into, particularly in the math department, English department. They look over the results every year, they look at the data, they look and see where the holes are, and then they adjust their instruction to really target the areas where we're weak. In particular, the math department, Christine Gamble and those guys have really put in a lot of work because math, as we talked about in these meetings before, had started to go in the wrong direction, and they saw that, corrected it, and now the results speak for themselves. Going forward, we now have a new version of the test delivered in a new format in a new way. So, Christina and Sergio, the English department chair, and I are going to a webinar on November 5th to learn more about that, and we'll have to take that as it comes. But given our kids and given the way that our teachers have responded, I feel like we'll do exceptionally well on that exam as well.
Got a quick
Good.
question. What data backs up the MCAS and EBIT having any real-world impact for our kids once they graduate from here?
Zero. It's a state requirement, so it must be one of those state funding.
Okay, no, I'm just asking, I just you know, I think that's important that parents understand that also. It's one of the hoops you gotta jump through, but it's not the be-all and end-all to things.
It's a data point.
Yes,
Sounds like you've been using the data to change your, how or what you're teaching, where, when. Do you think that's been to the benefit of the students or to just the exam?
I would say 80% to the benefit of the students and 20% to the benefit of the exam. So I think it does, the test does identify some areas of weakness, and obviously we want to address those. But then, you know, I know for the first year, Christina and the math crew decided, really vigorously went back into the data to kind of see where the holes were. One of the areas that we were falling down were box and whisker questions. That's a 7th grade standard. And they were putting them on the 10th grade test. So why would we be in the 10th grade be going back into 7th grade to do a skill that really isn't applicable when you talk about pre-calculus? So, but they went back, they said, okay, well, these are gonna be questions on every exam, let's teach it, so let's not lose points where we don't have to. And so they spent a little bit of time in class, hey guys, remember this from 7th grade? And as a result, we did better on those questions going forward. So, but I would say, you know, in general, the time was well spent because teachers can kind of see, okay, well, yeah, maybe we could do this a little bit differently, maybe we could do this a little bit better, and we're seeing the results.
Some of the description you had, it was useful in terms of not asking a question, but maybe making a statement in that I'm far less concerned and have continued to be far less concerned about what the score is versus is the data available and used by the administration and staff to reflect and look at where did we miss, and we knew we were going to miss, where did we miss, and want to make changes, all of those sorts of questions.
Yeah, and I would say we use all the available data that we have, so not just MCAS scores,
Sure.
but SAT scores, English and math, we're going over those just this last week, AP scores, common assessments, we look final exams, midterms, we look, you know, where we can glean information and where we can sort of adjust and tweak, we try to do that.
What's the difference between these MCAS scores were from the paper exam, and now we're going over to the electronic version?
A
Same,
different test as well.
it is a different test as well, okay.
The content is slightly adjusted to align with Common Core, and the format is different. I think the format is actually going to be as equal of a hurdle as the content, because I have complete confidence in the teaching staff with the content, but getting students used to taking a math, and it might just be me because I'm old, I just can't imagine taking a math test without pen and paper, and
Okay.
scratch it out. You could talk to these 2 guys when they come up, and maybe they're like, no, it's fine. But you know, they have their word problems that they have to work out on the computer, and then there are also just the typical, you know, A, B, or C, and they have to pick those 2. So that, I think, is gonna be a little bit of a learning curve.
Okay.
But the benefit is that the kids who are going to be taking the exam have already taken a computer exam when they were with the middle school.
Okay.
So even though it was a couple of years ago, at least they have a little bit of muscle memory for this. And we did a trial run, we had a pilot program last year at the high school, we did a pilot administration. So the teaching staff also kind of knows what it's going to look, kind of feel like, so.
Okay, good.
We're not anticipating too many issues.
Good.
The next initiative, and I'm gonna just briefly introduce it and then let Sarah and Nikki talk about it more in depth. This year we added a new course to our offerings called Innovations, and the idea behind the course was that it really came from a lot of the conversations that we've had at the school committee about letting kids pursue their passion and giving them an opportunity to self-identify things that they're interested in, and then work through in a long and more systematic way on how they can start with an idea and end up with a different product. So Sarah and Nikki have been enrolled in Innovations now for about a month. The design of the class is that the first month and a half is more teacher-centered instruction, where Colleen Maltazari and Cameron Loss, who are the teachers of the 2 sections, are giving the students activities to go through. I'll let the students share with you those activities as a way to help them stretch their muscles in different areas of thinking, so creative thinking, systemic thinking, so that when they come to their own problem, they've got practice and actually going through the processes of how you solve these problems, both independently and together as a group. So the idea is that now that some of this more teacher-centered instruction is finished, the students are now going to be starting relatively soon to kind of break off into their own individual area of interest. And so I'll let these two students talk about what that's going to look like. We're really excited about the class. It's one of the classes that I keep finding myself finding my way into, because I never know. You walk into the class, you know, I'm an English teacher, so I walk into Sergio's class and they're gonna be talking about essays, and I love essays, so I have no problem with that. But when I walk into Cameron Loss's innovation class, I never know what I'm gonna hear. And that's fascinating. And another nice part for me is a parent today said that one of the students who's in innovations class, she was a student who generally liked school, but never really loved it. But this year she's in innovations and she really enjoys school, and it's because she feels like she has more choice and she's more directed in her own learning. So I think the class has done that to help kids see, even beyond the class itself, I get to have agency and ownership of the learning that I get to do going forward. So that's exciting as a principal to see the kids engage in that kind of work. So I'm gonna shut up and let Nikki and Sarah do the talking.
Thanks.
I think you're gonna have to share the one mic though.
Welcome.
Does that other one doesn't work? It might work.
It seemed that
I think it does. He switched it up.
I don't see the light
Oh,
on.
I'm sorry. He switched one up.
So my name is Sarah Boucher. I am a senior at Sutton High School. And I'm Nikki Andrade. I'm a junior at Sutton. So last year while I was picking my course load, Miss Mo, who is actually our teacher, requested this class to me because she knew how much I like to study kind of like my own thing, and how like staying in a set curriculum wasn't always the best thing for me. So she recommended the class, and over the summer I got to think about the things that I would like to study, and I've come up with a proposed end goal. I'm not exactly sure, but that's kind of one of the good things about this class. You don't have to know exactly what you're doing. You can kind of like go with the flow of things. You don't have to have everything set from the beginning. So my idea is to work with women's shelters and orphanages in Worcester and hopefully create a public service announcement or a website that can kind of raise money or awareness for like their situations, or like kind of just how they've gotten to where they are and things that they are like looking forward to in their lives and stuff. So, yeah. I was initially had the class brought to me last year in my English. Mr. Lucas came in and spoke about it to try to pique some interest, and similar to Sarah, it jumped out at me because it wasn't like a traditional class where you had a textbook, you had units to follow and lessons, and you took quizzes once a week. It was something where you got to pick something that you were passionate about, and you got to learn and go in depth and create some sort of project or end goal from it. And it was mainly driven by what you wanted to do, which I really was interested in. And I also love how Sarah and I are in the same class. We have 8 people in our class, and so it allows us to have more in-depth and intimate conversations about things. Like when we present projects to the class, once we're done, everyone in the class kind of gives constructive criticism and compliments, tells you, ways you could do better. And that's some of the things that we've done recently. We've done a couple presentations and we've learned how to better discuss things, have less words on our slides, and actually know what you're saying instead of trying to memorize something or have facts written on a note card that you're reading, more talking from knowledge rather than notes. So one of the projects that we're working on now is a innovation of a classroom in our high school, or any classroom in the district. So me and Sophie are actually working on an elementary school classroom, and tomorrow we are actually presenting that. And the innovation, so we talked to teachers and staff members throughout the school, and found things that they have found or learned about their classrooms that they think would improve the learning style and the comfort of the children in each class.
Yeah, so I worked with Lucas Lornell on our project, and we focused more on a generalized high school classroom. So we designed a classroom with like group tables of 4 to encourage like discussion learning and collaboration. We had like a wall of computers in the back of the classroom because at least one class a day, a teacher brings us to one of the computer labs, and we thought it would be really helpful to have computers already in the classroom available to the teachers. We just had small elements like more comfortable seating, as Sarah said, to make the environment more open and more friendly for students to enjoy.
So how this class kind of differs from others, like we said before, the curriculum is less structured. There's not a quiz every week. You don't have to memorize all these words and write them right back down on a paper. The things that you're learning are things that obviously apply to this classroom, but you know as you're learning them that you're going to be able to apply them in life and in college and in work. Like I work, and I know that presenting in this class has definitely helped me become more confident when I'm talking to the people who come into the restaurant. So that I've definitely noticed that, and I think that's really interesting, and I really appreciate the fact that that class has been able to give that to me.
Yeah. One of the things that we've started, and actually Sophie presented hers today for the first time in class, is something called Creativity Day. So Miss Mo, our teacher, assigned us all one day from now until December, in either a drop 1 or a drop 7, and the student has the entire class period to do an activity that makes people think outside the box. So Sophie did a little writing assignment where you had to write about something, someone, someplace that you loved, but you couldn't use any words with the letter E. And so it was really difficult to try to rewire your thinking and be like, all of the words that you normally use have E. So you had to kind of, again, think out of the box and change the way that you would have written about something.
It was really interesting because Miss Mo tried to do it too, and she's a Spanish teacher, so we were like using Spanish words, and she was struggling like within her own writing. So it was fun. It was really.
This is excellent. I love hearing stuff like this. It's innovative and you know, things that you're passionate about, you tend to excel in. And one of the things you mentioned, you said, you know, we didn't know exactly what we were doing.
Mm-hmm.
That's when I find you learn the most.
Yeah.
If you knew exactly what you're doing, there's not as much to gain. So this is excellent. I love hearing situations like this and progress. So thank you very much for coming to present.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm happy to hear you say that you've gained a lot of confidence in speaking to a group. This is not an intimidating group, okay? You know our kids.
All of Sutton is watching, right?
But it's nice to hear that a week or 6 weeks in that you've already identified that you've gained confidence in speaking that way, and I think that's already I'm thrilled that this class exists and it's going so well, and I think there are going to be a lot more kids in your, well, you'll be gone, but Nikki, you'll have a lot more kids in your innovations class next year. And I certainly hope that the second part of that is that you feel a lot more comfortable when students are giving their presentations, and at the end that you have your peer review and your comments, that you learn to structure your comments and you learn to accept constructive criticism from peers. That'll do you very well through life.
It's huge. It's wonderful. I mean, I always want kids to love high school. You know, so many kids, oh, wait until you get to college, you'll love college. Well, I want them, how many times have we said that? Not cool. So I want you to love high school. And if you can find something you're passionate about, you're gonna wanna come to school. And to me, that's everything, so cool.
Nikki, what's your project? What's your passion in this class?
I'm not completely sure what my end goal is, but I want to work with something mental health centered, whether it's trying to integrate more awareness and learning about it in middle school and high school, like breaking the stigma towards it. something based around that. And again, that's something that I like about the class is it's not set in stone, so I can still be figuring out what I want to do.
Are there other juniors in the class as well?
Yes.
Good.
So I believe there are 3 or 4 seniors. Three
That's
seniors in
perfect.
our class. And
You get to
5
carry the
juniors.
torch.
Yeah.
The seniors get the back row seats or the front row? Or?
We actually, we're so small that we all fit in the center circle. So.
Yeah.
That's perfect. That's the best way to learn.
Would you both be willing to come back in the spring and
Yeah, sure.
tell us about your projects when you've...
You'll be invited to the Innovations Fair that we'll have.
Spectacular.
Terrific.
Community event.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
Innovations and the internship program, is there any link at all, or is it possible to link?
I'm gonna back on here, but the idea is that for the seniors, so for Sarah just said, I'm interested in working with women's shelters. That Sergio then says, great, let's see if we can find you an internship with a women's shelter.
Right.
Now, depending on her schedule, she may not, in her sports schedule, she doesn't have a full 25-hour internship, but at least there'll be some field component that ties into the innovation class. That's the
Yeah.
goal.
And it seems even if you, I think that's great. I think even as a junior, if you've got some sense of something you might like to be doing, to get a kind of a baseline, so that you can either turn around and say, yeah, that's definitely not what I want to do, or you're that much further ahead.
Terrific.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This
Ted,
doesn't
I had
get
one
you
more
out of
question
homework
for
that's
you.
due tomorrow.
I think it was a different project, but there was an article in the newspaper this past week. Was that the Connections Group?
Yeah, that's why I neglected it. I should have talked
Okay.
about that. They should have been the closer. Connections is pretty great too, so I have no problem talking about it. So Connections, we're entering our second year in partnership with the Anti-Defamation League. We're entering our second year partnering with the Anti-Defamation League. We have a new trainer out this year, Tana. She's been great. The students are really responding to the work in the classroom. And so the new Connection members, about 30 of them, they went through that training. The first one was at Blackstone Golf Course, and they're always gracious, and they give us their function room, which is great, because getting the kids outside of the building for that first session is kind of critical, because it allows them to sort of break away from their friends and really get into the mental space. Okay, here's the work we're going to be doing. Then after that, we're back in the team room, and Jerry lets us borrow the team room for these sessions, because frankly, it's the only room that's big enough to do all this work. So, for example, one of the questions, we're talking about bias and implicit bias, and how that impacts us in our daily lives, how that impacts people that we may not see. If I'm not affected by a hurtful comment, does it still matter? What's my role as a person, community member, if I see someone making a comment or doing an action towards someone based on their race, gender, ethnicity? What's my role? What's my responsibility? So we're talking about everything from gender-based discrimination in school, in the workplace, what the kids have seen. There was a conversation that happened where a student, the questions that the kids come up with are great. This year in particular, I think Tana just does a really skilled facilitator. So we have a student, one of the students talks about, she's wondering if because she's white, is she at a disadvantage when she applies to college, and is it wrong for her to think that she's at a disadvantage? But then Tana, of course, says no, it's not wrong. That's the whole reason why we're in the room, is to have these conversations so that people are operating on facts and not on feelings or incorrect information. And so the kids have been really courageous with the questions and just the thought process and the work that they do. They just take it so seriously. But it's also, you should like the work. I love the work. So there should be a little bit of a joy to it too. And so having the kids sit there and talk about it and question each other and about these things has been great to watch. Has been really inspirational for me. When I've talked to Tana, she's really been impressed with the kids and the community and the support that we've given to the initiative, because too many times with something like this, it's a bad thing happens, there's a response, we check a box, we did it, and then we forget about it. And something like this is just too important to just check a box and move on and just say, okay, well, we covered that, we're just going to be done with it. So the kids who come back, we have about 15 returning members, and they were all given the opportunity not to come back. So we did have some kids who just said, you know what, for whatever reason, maybe I'm not going to come back. We had 15 kids come back, and they're back in it, along with the new guys. And the goal is that the Connections kids that we have will facilitate lessons for all the ninth graders. And then the goal for this year, although we'll have to see how it plays out, we have 2 additional goals for Connections this year. One is to get working with the middle school in some form or fashion. One of the things that the kids talk about, and one of the things we just know, is that by the time they get to high school, if they've heard some of these statements, if they've gone too far down a road of believing certain things about a person based on their sexual orientation or race, that it's a lot more work to unwind that and unpack that as if they were getting in front of it earlier, more specifically and directly, and confront it in middle school. And so what we'd like to do is do some work with the middle school students in an age-appropriate way. The nice thing about ADL is they have high school lessons and they have middle school lessons too. So it's not like you're trying to like jam in something that doesn't fit for someone who's, the way you're gonna talk about these things to a 11-year-old is just different than you're gonna talk to about an 18-year-old. And that's age-appropriate and important. But the most important thing is that the conversation's happening with the 11-year-old and the 18-year-old, because we can't expect them when they're 18 years old to just get there and figure it all out on their own. So that's the one initiative that we really want to get up and running. And then the second one, it might be a little bit of a stretch, but I've had conversations with other area principals who've also dealt with issues of hate in their schools, and the idea of getting Sutton kids together with Millbury kids, with BMR kids, with Nipmuc kids in a room where there's a facilitated conversation and workshops around these issues, so that kids can see that here in Blackstone Valley, in the DVC, in Worcester County, that these things exist everywhere, and that the work that they do is important everywhere. And so it's not just, oh, Sutton, they have this program and that's it. It's that these things are important and that people around the valley all value it. And so now, if they're having that conversation between kids in Millbury and Sutton and BMR, then it adds a level of import to the work. And then that, again, we want more kids to have this knowledge than fewer. So that's our second initiative. We'll have to see. That might be a little bit tougher to pull off, because whenever you're dealing with multiple schools and busing and all that stuff, it's a little dicey, but we'll see what we can do.
It was great to see that article. That's just fantastic publicity for our school, and says an awful lot about what we deliver, so.
Thanks. The kids deserve the credit. They're doing great work. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good seeing you.
Thanks.
Next item is the Simonian Center update with Miss Miriam.
The other end of the kid world, I guess.
Yeah, we thought we'd try something a little different by have both ends of the school coming in, and where you come in and where you go out talk. So.
That works. So I just want to kind of fill you in on what's been going on our littler end of the world. It's been actually a nice start to the school year. Not very many tears, and most of them have been from the parents, so I think that's a win. If you have been in our halls over the last few weeks, you would have seen a lot of different things, from self-portraits, kids looking in the mirrors and then making a picture of themselves holding the mirror, so some very cute stuff there. You would have seen some poetry. Some of the second graders wrote letters to the incoming second graders on what to expect when they came into the second grade, which was some real nice writing on their part. You would have seen some octopus coming out of the art room. You would have seen our first graders walking around with paper pots on their head as they were learning about Johnny Appleseed. And as usual, just all kinds of some really nice early childhood appropriate lessons going on, which again is, as you guys probably remember from last year, my little soapbox of what we're really trying to make as our biggest and most changing program and sort of thought process ongoing. Oh, and also you would have been hearing about not only the three little pigs, but the twisted tales of the three little wolves and the big bad pig, which the second grade did a very nice job of combining the English language arts with the science and STEM projects, where the kids had different sets of materials to build their own house, and then used a fan to talk about their predictions of would their house withstand the fan. And it was really great to watch their little minds trying to figure out why things would stand up and why they fell down, and they get to redo it every few days with different materials, and to sort of expand the process and what do they think is going to work. And it's just a really nice process for them. It's fun to watch. Some other really sort of exciting things going on. We all have smart boards now in all of the classrooms, which is many, many thank yous. It's a huge resource for all of the teachers. There really is now an even playing field for everyone. It really sort of was the land of the have and the have-nots, even just with the ability to deliver the same curriculum. So now I feel like everybody has the same set of materials and can really access the same materials in the same way, which is really exciting. We're still, getting all of our feet wet. It's a lot to take on, and some people aren't as familiar with all of the technology. We had some great PD on it at the beginning of the year, and we're working with Dan Durgan to do some surveys and continuing the learning process for the teachers as we go on. But I think I have seen, even for the newbies, the board on and working in lots of various ways throughout the first few weeks, so it's very exciting. And the kids, of course, are just wowed. It's, so much more fun to see the letter cards up on the big board than it is, to look at them on their table. So we're using that energy to our best. Another really great tool that the teachers are using this year is Storia, which is an online web program that has books. It's through Scholastic. I found it sort of in my search over the summer and was able to purchase it. And the teachers who are a little bit more familiar with the platform have gone on, and they're able to assign both individual children and groups within their classroom different bookshelves. So the kids can go in and get books read to them, they can read the books, and they can do all sorts of different activities based on theme, based on reading level. And so actually on Friday morning, one of my teachers who is very fluent in it is gonna show my whole team how to use it, because it's just a great resource with all kinds of books, and you can really tone it and specify it to the learning needs of each of your kids. My teacher's using it for a variety of different resources in and out of the classroom. The kids can also use it at home once it's set up. So teachers are enjoying that. I have some teachers doing some new practices within their classroom. I have a teacher in first and a teacher in second now using the Daily 5, which is a center approach for doing a lot of different ELA work. So there's the read to self, work on writing, read to someone, listen to someone reading, and word work. And what it does is allow the kids to, it's the same projects for the whole week, and they, alter through the project. So when I went into first grade this morning, some kids they had the choice, they chose, and they moved their clip, and they were reading a book to themselves, quietly sort of spread out on the floor. There were a few kids working on their life via a comic strip, so they were, filling in what they liked and what they did in 3 little comic strip boxes. There were some kids on MobyMax, and there was the teacher was able then to pull a small group aside to work on some real skill-specific work while everyone else was still doing excellent work, and the assistant was walking around the classroom, and it was just so well done. I was very impressed. And Mrs. Poulin in the second grade is also taking that on. So it was just a great, I love it. I think I'm gonna have some of the other teachers do some shadowing and just check it out and see what it's like, because I think it could be really valuable across the board. We've had an amazing start to our bucket filler program, which is how we acknowledge the kids. They get nominated for kindness and being helpful and being a good friend. So the first day that it would have been possible for kids to have been announced, I had maybe 7 kids, which is huge. It's never started off with such a bang before, and the kids have just been amazing. I've had kids, I think there's only been 2 days where I haven't had anyone to announce, and so it's just been multiple kids, and just an exciting way to start the school year with everyone finding ways to be positive and to be friendly and to be taking care of each other. I think it really says a lot of how the kids have taken on the program and are excited to be acknowledged for doing those types of things. We have a few new members to our staff, including Mrs. Smith, who's new to our second grade, and a few new assistants and great fits to our program. We love our new friends and team members. Mrs. Smith is wonderful. She was our long-term sub last year. And we were very lucky to have her. We had a bunch of parent emails that talked about what a great job she did coming in mid-year and how we had to do anything we could to keep her, and we were very lucky to be able to do so. So we wanted to acknowledge that. What else? We have a couple events coming up. I'm excited to say that Mr. Peace is coming in on October 9th. And I'm actually going to reach out to the paper to see if they would like to come in and cover it. We were able to bring him in from the Diversity Council, which was from the DLT from last year. It's both my building and Denise's building. We have a parent group that still meets throughout the year, and we wrote a grant, and he is a well-known speaker across the country. He comes in and he does sort of rapping and audience participation. He's high energy, and he's doing a talk on diversity, kindness, and respect for us. And he'll do one session for my group, one group, the other group for Denise, and then he likes to be around for the afternoon and in lunch to talk to the kids individually. So we have that coming up, which I'm very excited about. And also on the Friday of PD, we have Lisa Toulousian coming in, who is going to talk with the teachers about diversity and sort of looking inward and seeing what our own practice and what our own prejudices are and how that is playing out, and doing some exercises with us. And then she's able to come back in March and fine-tune it and have us look at it, how it's impacting our teaching. So it's a nice two-parter. And I think that might be it.
The one great thing I heard is the direct connection to DLT and how it's brought back into the school, and now we have activities taking place as a result of that group, which is pretty exciting for me to hear. So that was great.
For both kids and staff.
Right.
You mean one of the great things? There was lots of great
Lots
things.
of
No,
good
but one exactly. It's an impressive group that
Yeah,
worked.
thank you.
Terrific.
You couldn't bring any first graders in?
Might be a little late for that, so. Terrific.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank
thank
you
you.
very much.
Thank you. And next item is the fiscal 18 revised final budget transfers. Nancy?
Okay, I'm going to take you through the document, the year-end figures. I'd like to do this hopefully pretty quickly. We redid this because there were 3 more payrolls that came out of the summer that wasn't accounted for. We had accounted for it, but it wasn't accounted for in Munis. And so there was an additional $14,000 in salaries that came out over the summer from what was presented at the last meeting. So in the end, if you look at the document, it says we're in the negative for salaries, $115,776. That's because the $330,000 that we allocate for that from school choice isn't in that number. So in reality, we had $214,000 remaining in salaries. So I just want to highlight how quickly you can save $200,000 in salaries, but how it can also go the opposite way. So we had a number of changes in personnel. That's really where you see the savings. So in special education administrative salary change, we had a person who was there for a very long time. We saved $9,300. Technology person, we saved $7,000. ELC had changed an administrator from a long-time person. We saved $11,600. Elementary, $10,000. We had a change in teacher from a veteran teacher to a new teacher. We saved $30,000. We saved $13 in a special education teacher. A teacher went on a maternity leave for most of the year, and we were able to save money there. You can see how that quickly adds up. Custodians, we saved $20,000, and in instructional assistants, we saved $30,000. And there were several others. So it doesn't always work that way, but this past year, it did add up to a lot. So that was that. The other thing I want to say is we look back at the previous budget presentation at the end of the year and this is what we did at the end of last year as well. The only difference was we included we had special education carved out. We just embedded that where it belonged. Nothing else really changed. I want to bring your attention down to athletics, where it says we're $11,551 in the rears. When we went back and looked at this, we had budgeted $11,000 out of athletic revolving, but we didn't use that $11,000. And so we're really only over on that budget line by $551, and that's basically due to the busing issue. So it really was basically level funded or level spent. So in the end, when you get down here, and this is what you did last time, we would look for a vote to transfer $58,979 into circuit breaker, and the $330,000 in school choice, you don't vote that because that just stays in that revolving account. I don't know if that clears things up a little bit for you guys.
Can you walk me through the math on the first line?
The math on the first line.
So you got 12.6, 12.4, 115 difference. Am I doing the math right? Is the 12.4 plus the 115 equal to 12.6? So I just want to understand it. I'm not.
No, it looks like it's backwards.
What you had mentioned was there's the 333 from school choice.
Yes, the
When you
330.
minus the 115 from the 333, I think you have the difference there, and that's.
I think that's what's going on here. It's just I just want to understand, or the athletics one. I like how that works out.
I was only looking at what we do under salaries is we embed $330,000 in that line, in the high school line account. Do you have that, Nancy? I thought I really had this answer for you.
I
So
think
if you
it
had
just looks odd when it's in the column format, and you get this one to this one, and that, and it kind of glazes over the
So we
330.
budgeted 12.6. We actually spent 12.4.
Mhm.
The balance remaining on salaries is different because
It's the 333.
Yeah.
And if we minus the 333 right away from the 12.6, you're right away, you're at 12,333. And then that becomes the difference. But the way it's done in this column format, it gets confusing.
so
At least that's how I understand it.
I think the 330 is what makes it confusing, because you have the 330 that was to be allocated from school choice that wasn't used.
So the budget of 12.6 includes 330 of school choice.
Yes.
We did never use the 330 of school choice
Correct.
funds. We used the rest of it. 12.6 minus the 330 that was school choice, the difference there and the actual spending of 12.4 is 115.
Same thing down under athletics.
For athletics, we budgeted 103, we spent 114, which has an 11.5 difference.
But we didn't embed in Munis the $11,000 out of athletic revolving. We just
So it's-
carried that to the side.
So let me see if I can keep up with you. We budgeted 103, we spent 114. In that 103 budget, we did not include in that line, transportation.
No,
No.
The school,
the
revolving.
revenue out of revolving, the revenue out of
Revolving.
revolving was
So-
$11,000.
103 plus the 11,000 in revolving is to some degree what would be budgeted.
Correct.
Spend 114 against that. That's how you get down to, I've forgotten what you said, but basically $500.
$551.
What we're trying to do, and we never seem to get there, is we have some revenue embedded in the budget because it, and then some not embedded in the budget.
For years, we've tripped
creates
over that.
Incredible, and we look a little bit, I shouldn't say foolish, but it's how we do the math, and then you're on TV trying to remember, okay, is this one embedded in the budget, or is this one not embedded in the budget?
And how do you explain why it's sometimes embedded and sometimes not? It gets even more cloudy, quite frankly, right? I mean, because I think the format is, this is fantastic, right? But the ability to be able to say, oh, well, that one's got the 11, that one, or that one doesn't have the 11, this one has the 330, somehow knowing that in advance.
It gets a little confusing as well when you look at another big grant is the 240 grant, which is $331,000. And when you embed that in, that's another example of.
All of those numbers we knew at the beginning of the year, we anticipated or balanced the budget by applying them to lines.
Yes.
But we don't, as we close this out, really show, we applied, for example, 330 to this line, we ended up not using it. That's sort of lost here.
Maybe you need kind of like a side sheet to show you,
Well,
well, this is
and-
what we allocated in it, and this.
I don't know if it's something where in the account description it was salaries without school choice. And you do a little denotion that that was 330, and then you see that the amount was 336. Something like that, that gives you more consistent math and knows that there was a 330 in there originally.
There's an element
Might
of
help.
what was budgeted was
Yep.
budgeted, but
Show
then
all
in
your
this
work.
conversation, we said it was budgeted, but that wasn't really included, we pulled that out. Well, hang on, where did I go? Or on this one, it was budgeted, but we,
Yeah.
I'd rather get, and there's some reasons why we can't, but ideally, you would take revenues and have a separate column. And your budget is actually what, because it's misleading, obviously. We should have a budget, $17 million, the revenues from where we're getting them to equal $17 million done.
we did that, and it has its own collection of concerns around people asking, well, what is that money? If it isn't budget, then what is it? And it's all part of the budget, but some of those lines are a little different.
But
Majority of them are included in the budget. There's probably, I mean, I would have to go back and look, but one or two that are side, like the 11,000 in the athletics.
It's really dangerous. We get down to one or two, and sometimes these conversations in different environments, it's like, oh yeah, well, that one also.
Right.
And by the third, oh, that one also, or, well, that's because that 330 is over there, and it's not over here. Sometimes folks start to wonder,
and there's a
here
number of
is.
those.
yeah,
You know, $130,000 out of aftercare revolving for electricity. That's embedded in the budget, and it's very confusing. And the one thing we do, because again, I think of Jeff Bannon. Jeff Bannon's always on this as well from FinCom. We on our end, we keep a separate spreadsheet as well. So we're tracking this every month. But it would be nice to have a cleaner system, but I just don't know how we get there.
I wonder if it's one column in here. If this sheet had had one additional column that, you know, there's two pieces to budget, and that 330 had showed up. Because on that first line, if the 330 were there, you could fairly quickly do the math, right?
You could have a general budget column and then a revolving column.
Right.
Which
Which
would be those.
we also, over the years, have ping-ponged back and forth, right? Tell me more about the revolving, because it would just pop up in these places, and you'd say, well, what's that? This is great in that it springs more questions.
How does this shake out when there's an audit?
We
How does
never-
it, I mean, how does it get explained out when there's an audit? That,
The auditors all understand it.
Right.
For them, it's their language.
okay.
For
They
them,
look at Munis, right?
when Tim Harrison looks at this and when Nancy looks at it, and the auditors look at it. I mean, they talk, Jim Smith, Nancy, and I had a meeting 2 weeks ago in Jim's office, and they started talking about this stuff, and it was like Jim and I just looked at each other and said, because this is their language, and it's different than ours.
But I think
When
I've
we
always
get-
done, oh, go
Sorry, but when we get down to the final sheet, and this is so close, it really is very, very good. There's gotta be a way so that fools like me can look at those four numbers and say, here's how that happened. So that we don't go into a series of questions and somebody has to go, well, wait a minute, was that, what revolving account? And
When you vote the budget in June, you have all that.
yes.
What we
yeah,
don't
yeah.
do is at the end, do
Show
it
it.
again and say, okay,
Right.
this is what you agreed to, this is how we're
Right.
gonna pay for it.
And this is, I really think closer than
We've ever
we've
been.
been. It's really very, very good. It's that one little piece that,
Yeah,
I think
so
would
it's
bring
here
that.
in the beginning, I wanna see it there in the end, and if we're not, you guys, I need to be able to explain it. Paul needs to be able to explain it.
Yeah, it must be hard, honestly, for you guys, because we live it every day. You see it once or
Yeah,
twice
the
a month.
shelving.
But it is getting better, and that's always been our understanding is the financial people speak munis, that's good. It's how do you translate that for the layman? And that's what we've been working
For
towards, and
the
it's
community.
better, it's much
Yeah.
better.
And how do you get to the conversation where, quite frankly, you haven't lost them? The folks who switched the channel right after they went, oh my God, Mr. Friend just did 4 numbers in a row, and they don't. And they do add up. And your comment about there's nothing here that we didn't see and approve at the beginning of the year. It's really just how are you closing out the year, and there really is good news in here.
Yeah, there's really good news in here.
Yeah.
It really is.
Mhm.
So if you don't have any other questions, motion to.
Just show your work.
Show you.
That's what I always tell my kids, I can't give you credit if you don't show the work.
I move to approve the transfer of $58,979 from the general budget to circuit breaker as presented.
Second.
Any more discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Fantastic. Thank you. Next year, there's gonna be that one more column. and Ted's just gonna-
Show your work.
Next item is budget update.
If I could, I just wanted to circle back to, when we were approving the warrants, there was a question about the soccer uniforms, so I looked them up. So it's for girls and boys soccer, and for each sport, it was $3,887.48, so it's split evenly. And the reason they're separate, transactions is we're just billed as the shipments come in. So one shipment comes in, we're billed for
So
that.
if they're both
So they could be-
3,000, but wasn't one sheet was a $3,000 bill and like a $394 bill? And on the second sheet, I thought it was like a $3,000 bill and a $2,000 bill.
They should have came out even, the 3,887. I mean,
Maybe, I'm gonna go back and look.
They delivered 1 through 20 in the first shipment and
They didn't
21
bring the
through 30
socks.
in the second,
I don't.
They didn't bring the socks.
plus the socks.
Plus the socks, that's what throws it up. Every time.
It's stuck to the back of the uniform, that one sock. All right. Oh.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah.
I'm just
Go
trying to
ahead.
look it up. Why, I don't know why it won't open, but.
So in your packet, in the last meeting, we discussed the Unipay fees. So in your packet, you will find the estimated figures that I put together for you. It's based on last year numbers and how much it will cost to pay fees that are incurred by parents who pay by electronic check on Unipay. So a parent will be charged 25 cents per transaction to pay by electronic check, but now that will be paid by the school. So it's estimated that it will cost approximately $1,140. And this is if every one of these transactions was paid through electronic check. And the parents will still have the option to pay by credit card, but with the credit card, they'll incur that fee, not the school. So this fee will be taken from our school use account. This account generates about $30,000 a year. We will highly encourage parents to pay by electronic check online through Unipay. And if parent is not comfortable paying online through Unipay by check or by credit card, they can contact the school and we will accommodate them, even though we really would like majority of the parents to pay online through Unipay.
I do believe we did discuss last meeting, and we did say the paper check was still gonna be accepted.
We will accept, so like anything, like any business, what we want to do is funnel as many people as possible to the electronic format. It saves us countless time and people touching money. But there is going to be, and I think it'll be a small percentage of people that just are not comfortable with putting information over a computer. And for those people, they can reach out to the school and we will accommodate them. And we will set up a plan to take their money however they would like to pay us.
Can you, next year, keep track of how close we were to 1140 and how often somebody was asking to be able to pay in person? I just think it'd be good at the end of the year to review and see.
And for credit card too, because are we prepared to have a parent show up at the meeting and say, you're gonna do the 25, you're gonna pay the 25 cents for a check, but if you're not gonna pay the $2.50 if I use my credit card, why?
I'm okay arguing that one out, because that's a very different payment. It's very different. You have checks, that's money in your account. A credit card is giving you the ability to put that off to another time. And if the school accepted credit cards, we'd get charged for that processing fee. And I don't want any part of that. That's a luxury to have the credit card ability to do that. So I'm okay, if somebody asks me that, I'll argue that point. And the 25 cents, I want to use that to encourage people to pay online, which puts fees directly in the account, takes out the processing part. I'm okay with that.
Nancy, not to put you on the spot, but what would you say if you had to give a number we're gonna save doing this program? You know, the hours spent that somebody's going through checks and counting money and chasing envelopes and
They're gonna
things like that?
save a lot of time. I mean, starts with the administrative assistants in each school.
Yep.
And then it gets funneled to the business office, so you got the business office personnel. Then it goes to the town. So you got 3 sets of hands that usually count the money, process the checks, then someone brings them to the bank.
So it also takes a little bit of some work away from the town hall as well.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So
Now we can just, we would be able to go on Unipay, pick, say it's a field trip to senior field trip. You
Mhm.
can just click senior field trip. You'll print your report, it's automatically added. There's your deposit.
and so does the business office have quicker access to that money now?
Yes.
Just think about the elementary and early learning center. So right now, you go on any field trips, you do anything, the parent sends in an envelope with the child. The teacher collects that envelope, fills out a form. You know, she's running around, or he's running, it's mainly she's in the elementary school, but they're running around, putting this together. Kids are doing other things at the same time, so it cleans up a lot of that routine in the morning where the parents just pay online, it's already done, and the teachers are moving right into their work. But again, you know, our job is to encourage the streamlined process, and hopefully this we'll come back in May or June and share with you what percentage took advantage of this, the pros and cons, because I'm sure there'll be some cons to this as well. Let's bring that to you.
In this 25 cents, we're not looking to reduce the cost of participation by 25 cents and backfill it. This will be the surcharge that's applied on top. So everybody's gonna pay $300 to play a sport. Nobody's gonna pay $299.75 and, okay.
No.
We'll use that revenue from the dance studios and other organizations that use that facility.
Will they have to pay to use the facility with a check like this?
I guess we need a motion.
Sorry, I'm off the sheet.
I move to approve using funds from the building use account to pay the 25-cent fee charged to parents, guardians for the using electronic check to pay for fees due to the Sutton Public Schools.
Second.
Any more discussion?
The way you wrapped that up, the presentation, I mean, it'd be great to see whether it's really 1140 or not, but I think it's a good way to estimate, and I like how that was presented.
It's very good, thank you.
You don't need a third column on that one.
All those in favor?
Aye.
I'll abstain. Budget update?
Okay, in your packets, you'll find the FY19 budget. There are a lot of reclasses that need to be done at this point in time, but there are two line items that I want to bring to your attention. The first line item is on page 13 for our med therapeutic out of district. Currently, it's over budget by $5,107. We have a student that's out of district that requires an aid in transportation, and this was an unexpected expense. So we're forecasting with this expense at the end of the year that this line item will be over by $44,000.
It's over by 5 already?
Right now, it's over by 5. By the end of the year, we're forecasting to 44,000. And then the next line item that I wanted to bring to your attention was on page 45. And this is under trash removal for each of the schools. It's gonna be over with each school by $252 for a total of $1,008. The trash company quotes came in higher than anticipated. So that's for those.
What'd you say, like 250,000 total?
Sorry?
You said like 250 a school?
$252 a school, yep.
That's for the year.
That's for the year.
Okay.
Yep, so each school, totaling $1,008 total, it'll be over. So those are the two that, right now, I wanted to bring to your attention. We'll continue to monitor both of those line items, especially the first one. And as the year goes on, we'll talk about where we'll be taking that money from. But right now, I just wanted to bring those to your attention. Now, on the revenue side, I wanted to talk to you about the Title I grant allocation. So when we built the budget, you know, you build your budget as what you think the grants are gonna come in at. But the Title I grant actually has come in at $40,000 less than we expected it to, due to our district's poverty rate dropping below 5%. But the good news is that we got the results on Circuit Breaker, and Circuit Breaker has increased by 34,000, higher than what we budgeted. So the budget, and now the third part is, the budget was, when you approved the budget, this is probably the part that's hard to remember because you need your side sheet. You approved it with $129,000 from school choice for out-of-district tuitions. But now that's not gonna be needed because we received the additional money from Circuit Breaker and we had some changes with our tuitions. So we can use that money from school choice to make up for the short money that we are not receiving from the Title I grant.
So,
I know that sounds confusing, so.
so down 40K in Title I grant, up
Yes.
35, 36 in Circuit Breaker. Other changes with SPED, the 120 school choice that we had applied to those lines will probably still hold up. It'll all wash.
Exactly. It's all gonna be taken from different places, but it's all gonna work
Yeah,
in the end.
that chance you're gonna be able to explain that on a single sheet of paper at the end of the year. That makes, I'm sorry, I'm kidding, but that makes sense.
Right.
We're good right now.
Right.
And next meeting could be a little different, but right now, we're treading in the right direction. Even though we lost 40 in Title I, we've done better in other areas, which is great.
Is Title I the only federal money we see?
No. Special education, 240 grant, the 262 grant. The special ed grant is 333 this year, 333,000, and we use that all, 336, but 333 of it is used to offset out of district placements. So that's a good grant.
then we can't succeed yet.
No, we're,
All the rest
we
of the
want,
grants.
we want as much as they'll give us. This is what we want.
And those are my updates unless someone has any questions.
Questions? Thank you, Nancy.
Great,
Thank you. Nancy wants to be earlier in the agenda, she told me.
Why?
This afternoon.
Talk to
Why do
Mr.
I always have
McCarthy
to go at
about
the end?
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nancy. The next item is to review and approve the superintendent's goals.
So I really have one main goal. I mean, I think every year we talk about making sure that we execute the strategic plan, and I think that's should be an annual goal to make sure that if we're going to focus on writing, that we carry through and we focus on that writing initiative. But I think what's gotten a lot of people excited is the work of the Vision Committee, looking at budgeting, I think for the first time a little bit differently than we've done in the past. I think we've always played budgeting defensively, and I'm not saying I'm going to go on the offense here, but a little bit of let's forecast out the next 5 years. Let's become innovative. I can tell you that in the last week or so since we've had our first Vision Committee meeting, I can't tell you the type of conversations that we've been having at the school about. It's just really exciting. I mean, Mr. Goyette is, we met today, and, just as an example, we met with special education today and talking about how we can combine special education services in the middle school and high school, freeing up monies from there to potentially provide additional reading services in the lower grades, hoping that we're going to address the problem in the lower grades, cost the district no more money. I mean, well, there might be a little bit more money, but not a lot. But be creative in how we run the system. And we're doing that with, so anyway, that's my goal. My goal is to take a lot of the elements we did in our budget last year, but then put in things that we really want to see over the next 3 to 5 years, and begin to have these conversations in the community about what are those priorities and what can we afford next year to begin the process. So, one of the big things is to measure this would be a different approach to the budgeting and how we present the budget. A detailed budget that will be provided to the school committee and FinCom, that we have a draft report from the Vision Committee that outlines and prioritizes some of the things. I mean, I don't know about you, but today's conversation here tonight was like one of the best conversations we've had at a school committee, well, except for last time. but to hear the results of things that we've talked about in here actually come to fruition was pretty exciting for me. And there's more of that to come. So, have that from the FinCom, and then for next year especially, really working on a more uniformed middle high school schedule, more uniform ways of sharing personnel and resources that really don't cost us anything or very little, but we get more from the program. We talked today about what if we had a shared engineering teacher 7 to 12, and we begin an engineering program, and those are the conversations that are taking place in our school now. Prior to this, the directions were level service budget. Let's protect what we have. The conversations are very, very different. So I'm very excited about that, and I'm also very excited about with the strategic plan. There's a bunch of stuff, but the one main thing I'm looking at is writing, focusing on writing across the district and making sure that we don't lose focus on that. I'll make sure the other things happen, but that's what I'm gonna key in on for our district. How do we improve writing in each and every school, in each and every classroom across the district?
Do you think there are other shared resources or services that could go, not just high school to middle school, but middle school to elementary school and obviously high school to middle school and elementary school to early learning center are, I don't want to call them the low-hanging fruit, but the simplest and probably the ones that stand out. But are there any that can go from the elementary school to the middle school?
Well, it's funny. As you have conversations, those ideas come up. So as we were talking today, as the example of special education, there can be. You could have a special education teacher that works in 5th and 6th grade and straddles. It's a little bit more complicated. We do have our reading specialist does that. She straddles between elementary and middle and high school. So we have some of that, but you know, the more you talk about it, the more you realize, well, this might match better between 5 and 6 versus 6 and 7. And there are endless possibilities once you start thinking differently about how we run a school system.
Having 4 schools in a single campus, the ability to collaborate and then act on things like this.
It's
So
Similar
nice
to the
that
way
we-
the music
we kept
department
that.
works.
the way,
There's continuity, they know what they're getting into when they go into freshman year.
I see them, of course, they're right next to me, and they're always in each other's rooms, they're always talking, there's collegiality, and, you know, break down walls, break down this notion of the prison cells of public education and break those down. I mean, to hear the young lady talk about designing a school with tables. When we were building that new high school, I was so mad because I was advocating, why are we buying these desks? Why are we buying these individual? And I was outnumbered by the by the group, and they got these double desks, and that's not how people function. Anyway, those are what I think are good goals that I should be targeting this year.
Anybody like to make a motion?
I move to approve the superintendent's goals for 2018, 2019 as presented.
Second.
Anybody have any further discussion? Hearing none? All those in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Pass 5-0. Thank you. Next item is the second reading of policies. I promise not to make this as painful as last week or the last meeting.
It's only half of
That's
that.
okay.
I might still make it.
Well, I don't think there's any motion anticipated, but I've been thinking about the policies, and I know I've been vocal on the policies. And as I sat and read them again, I think there are benefits and there are disadvantages to how they're written, and I mean, at the end, I think the benefits slightly outweigh the disadvantages, slightly. But if these have been vetted through MASC and with lots of input and checking with compliance with the Mass General laws and other items that way, I would be comfortable in following and just only making the minor tweaks that we need to, instead of a wholesale rewriting of the policies. My concern is that the gray that exists in the policies could bite us as much as it could benefit us. But if the superintendent, who has to deal with the folks who come in with questions, and you can cite and refer to the policies. If there aren't issues that come out of it, I can change my position to be more amenable to accepting what MASC writes with minor revisions.
You know, you sit back and you, like, there was contention in this room, and, but that was good, because then you go home and you really think through differently about, and you realize you belong to an organization that has lawyers that vet all of these things. I don't know if that was the right word, but they go through and they really cross-reference, and really it's designed for us to take them and then change it to Sutton's policy and change just some basic information, and it's there to protect us. And I would agree that some of these 3 and 4 page policies are just hard to read through. But if something goes wrong, you want to make sure that all those components are in there. So I think, and for our sanity alone, to spend crazy amounts of time when you're paying an organization to do this and to do all of that behind the scenes work to make sure that you're legally compliant, I think makes a lot of sense.
Again, it's just, my biggest thing is it's to the group, it's not individualized. And coming from healthcare, everything for me is individualized. So this is where this bothers me, because it's just a blanket statement. And to me, that doesn't work.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm uncomfortable with that. And there's a lot. There's a lot in here that's gray, so it's left up to interpretation. We've got laws out there, and we've got 15 people arguing 15 different ways it could be. So that's my concern. That's my concern, and how does it truly relate to us? That's what I wanted to see, is how is it really ours?
I would say that all those policies relate to exactly what our business is, those particular ones. I mean, sometimes there might be some policies that you say, why do we even have this policy?
They're a bunch like that.
And until the one time that you need that policy and it's not there, and then you know,
Yeah, and I mean,
you get hit.
some policies to me are far more important. The bullying, although I still don't see policies being completely followed through, but I mean, the bullying to me is more important than the meal charging policy. So they carry different weights.
Absolutely.
And that's why, in looking at them, to me, some are more negotiable than others, and some are more gray than others,
And that's how I viewed this in the very beginning, and as I thought about it more, we do have the ability to adapt any of these MASC policies to either be more specific to what we want, or I suppose less specific to what we want. I'm just saying that I've realized that I'm in favor of not doing a wholesale revision of everything. I will take them as they come.
that'll take forever.
Yes, I did that last year.
And that's part of it,
yeah.
is
But-
it's not a lot of fun to read through them in the first place, and to rework them would
Yes.
really, no.
Are
So-
there policies that, besides these 3, that we should be looking at? That-
We will get policies
that
that,
are more contentious than these.
we will get
3.
policies,
I would rather
there are more
find-
coming, so,
Yep.
yes.
Right.
Just
I would
hold on to
rather
them.
focus on spending time on pieces that are relevant.
Yes.
You know, that have already been issues in the past.
And Ted, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think MASC often sends us stuff that is also updates for things that we can be done with, because it's
Di-
no longer applicable.
Yeah.
Di does
To
that.
clean them up.
Di cleans all those up as they come in from MASC. You know, a perfect example is what you brought up the last time, Pete, and that is, you have a change in law. You have a law that, on March 14, 2016, that we have to verbally screen students for substance abuse in 2 different grade levels at a middle high school. We have to respond to the legal aspects of, and so that's when changes come in, when laws change. Or meal shaming happens, and it becomes a huge public outcry about children getting cheese sandwiches and so forth, and then policies get changed.
But at any time, there might be policies that come down from MASC that it really just doesn't apply to our district. And, you know, that's our job, is policy. We're welcome to change any of it that we see, that we deem fit. It's, you know, it's just, we just have to realize what we really want to bite off and where it makes sense to put the effort in.
If there are any specific policies that somebody wants us to review, please let me know, and we'll get them on the agenda. Otherwise, when Ted and I meet prior to a meeting, we set up we have a discussion of what policies we'll
Okay.
bring in that way, but I think we can certainly identify some that are more priority, that should be a bigger priority, like a bullying, that,
We do have a bunch we have to clean up.
yes.
So that's just really just cleaning those up and getting those re-updated, and then you can go to the more,
3 policies in their second reading.
yes.
Correct.
We'll have a third reading and a vote.
Vote.
Are there changes that we'll see or proposals for
There
changes?
have been no changes.
Just a couple changes. that we
You did get changes, okay.
And there was a question on those around procedurally, lots of the policies have a reminder necessary in them. It's not really part of the agenda item on these 3 policies, second reading, but I would like to see that rolled in somehow,
We just
by the
keep,
end of
right, we keep a system to notify principals, and we keep them in the handbooks.
That system is that doesn't rely specifically on Di or Ted, but that is,
And it's part of the student handbook.
works.
Those that
It's
have
not-
specific dates.
Those that have, some of them have specific dates, some of them
timeframes.
just are reminders,
Okay.
and so I think it's as simple as, it's a sheet, Di has it now, but if it wasn't Di and it was somebody else,
Goes to the next
they'd
person.
have, yeah.
Any more discussion on the second reading of these policies?
Nope.
Okay, we'll move to the Vision Committee update.
I'm gonna let Nate talk.
Um,
about this one.
Well, I
I
think
guess-
we didn't pull a vision committee. We decided we can all attend.
Can we,
So,
for those watching, just explain a little bit about what happened at the meeting? We did, there was a very good representation from parents across all schools, from staff, from the school committee, and from students in the high school and middle school.
Yes,
And in total, there were
57
57 people.
people.
So Ted gave a little presentation about the Vision Committee and what the goal is. And then we broke into four groups by school. And we had a school committee member with each school, staff for the school, parents for each school. And we're given 45 minutes to talk about ideas, and just put ideas down, wants and needs on a sheet of paper. At the end of the 45 minutes, we met again in the team room, and each school had someone go through and explain what they had come up with. Di had the wonderful task of trying to read all of that and put it into a version that we can all read. And here we are tonight to talk about recap the first meeting. So.
yeah, the attendance was excellent, and the collaboration was very impressive. It was nice to see so many folks work so well together. And as you said, from a school committee perspective, we split up amongst as many different schools as we could, and we had a chance to take in a lot of input, offer some input. It was really great to see parents, faculty, students working together. I know with the group I was with, we had 2 lists. We had wants and needs. I don't think we got to needs. We had so much discussion, and it was great. All of it was excellent. I did find when we reconvened, you heard some common themes, and there was just so much information that night. I'm glad it's written down. But one of the themes that I heard was life skills.
Yes.
They wanted something that helped the kids apply things more to everyday life. And it's great because it's some of the things we've been talking about here, to have the students that came in tonight and talk about their innovations class. That stuff excites me. We're heading in a direction where it's more creative. So the whole thing, it's very exciting. Again, I would welcome anybody who's listening. Please jump online, look at the school committee section of our webpage, and it has all of these files there. They can look at the ideas that came up. I know we're always thinking from a school committee perspective as well, and one of the things that I fully expect to see is something come to us to reevaluate the graduation requirements so that we can accommodate some of these innovations. So again, very exciting. I don't think I could do it justice in just talking about it quickly here. I know a couple more of us were in attendance, so.
It was great, and what was nice was DLT versus vision, there were different parents, which is
That's great.
which is good. I mean, that in and of itself is huge, because so you've got more varied thought. And I have to say one thing about the high school, as far as when we sat down, we went through things. They'd already done a questionnaire in the high school on various things. What do kids want to see? What might kids want to get rid of? But the same things were asked of parents, staff. Was community also in there?
I don't think he got it out to community.
I'm trying to remember. So parents, staff, and students, and pretty much in line with each other, and then pretty much in line with what we discussed moving forward. But the vertical, the life skills. I mean, that was it's huge. That's huge, because we need to help. Ultimately, it's that transition from high school to college, and how do you help make it a successful one, and then to the real world. So it was great. It was a great think tank, which is. It's exciting. It's exciting.
Exactly what we're hoping for. And the nice thing is, you go in there and it could be all things. We throw it at the wall. Let's see what sticks. And there could be things like, let's buy a $60,000 tractor, but it wasn't that. I mean, you look at one of the suggestions was a Genius Bar at lunch. The middle school, high school, for kids that they have questions about whatever, and you get some students that might volunteer to answer questions. I know another thing, you heard a lot about engineering, coding. How do we get that in the school? And there was discussions about computer classes, and we've got a lot of kids that they're quite advanced. We said, is there a way that you can kind of assess some of the students and say, geez, instead of you learning to use Word and some spreadsheet program, maybe you'd be more interested in the coding class, or you'd learn networking or something like that, which, again, if the interest is piqued, they're going to be a better student. One of the other big things, again, there was so many great ideas. There was discussions about, kids take, there's a music class you take, and the suggestion was, maybe if you're already doing an instrument, that could count and free up time to do something of more interest. There was another discussion about potentially, if you have a kid that's playing sports, could that satisfy their phys ed requirement? Now, I might argue, based on my own kids, no, they want to do sports and phys ed, but, it could be an option. And the thought there is, you want to be able to free the kids up to try different things. And that's been a challenge for us a lot of times with the schedule is, geez, I'm already taking this. I don't have the room for that. There's a lot more to it than just freeing up for the kids. We got to figure out the schedule. But again, very productive session. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to the next one.
One of the biggest things too, in just talking about life skills, was one simple one we came up with, was just a 10-minute break in the morning. It's just a get away from everything, clear your thoughts, and give yourself a little bit of time, which I think I'd love to see more than just one 10-minute break, but something as simple as that. Could it be virtually free? Depending on how we work things, perhaps it is.
Yeah.
So you just never know. But to break free from the constraints of, especially talking about grad requirements, so it's not 4-4-4-4, maybe it's 4-4-3-3 or 4-3, split 3-4, whatever. So you've got more flexibility. And again, it speaks back to I want the kids to be excited about high school, not to see it as I know, and that's great, but not to see it as a stepping stone to college. Oh, wait till you get to college, you'll love it. Now, how about if you love high school and you love what you're doing so that you carry it over? Isn't it all about passion? So anyway,
So that's what's.
I get excited with this stuff.
It
This
is,
stuff is
and
great.
it's reverberating through the school. You get staff involved. For staff to know that if I have some creative ideas, I might be able to try something different.
To give
pretty
them a
good.
forum as
Right.
well,
Mhm.
you know, not just have to go pitch it to the superintendent.
Now, there might be some, you know, if I was teaching middle school and I had a chance to maybe teach one class a day in the high school, I think I'd be pretty excited about that. Now, some may not want to do that, but, or vice versa.
But there'd probably be something for everyone. Isn't that?
You know, Jerry, and I spent a lot of time with Jerry. I spent a lot of time with all the principals, but Jerry is just like, he's thinking about the way they do it now. He's thinking, well, what if we just offered ceramics? And kids chose different, all those, you know, he does 36-week rotations and everybody has to take the same thing. But what if we did it differently? What if it was half a year and
What if there were 6 offerings and you chose 4?
that's it,
Yeah.
and that's,
Yeah.
and he, and just a much, so the kid was like, I don't want to do, I don't want to, I have no interest in music, but I have interest in, you know, any, whatever, whatever electives we have, or they're much more interested in science and want to do 2 electives in science and 1 health. There's, it's just, again, I need to be patient. I need to know that next year we'll start slowly. I mean, and that's what we talk about internally is we got to slow down a little bit here. We got to stay within ourselves, start slowly, methodically, and build our school in a different direction.
All right, so you gotta have, that's where that 3-year and 5-year plan, where do we wanna be in 3 years?
Yeah.
Where do we wanna be in 5 years? And how do we meet the little goals along the way? Because that makes it far more achievable than, here's where we need to get, here's where we start.
Well, and that's the great part. I mean, you have to plant the seed before you can harvest.
Absolutely.
So at this point, it's still very young. There's a lot of things that need to be figured out, but at least the ideas are out there, and
Absolutely.
it's exciting. So
And our first year, there are going to be things we're going to be able to do right away.
Mhm.
So it's not going to be, well, we're not going to be able to do this. We will be able to do things next year that are different than we're doing now. So that's exciting.
I mean, even you know, this you see this the vision committee, the vision approach, and it's so exciting. And then you hear things that Jerry talked about last time with like STEM Week.
Oh, yeah.
That's so exciting to hear stuff like that. I think it sparks
Oh, yeah.
additional conversation. So
But again, that's
all
all
good.
that hands-on learning and that's student-driven, and that's where I wanna see things.
Yeah.
And there were many ideas that came up that don't cost anything,
Absolutely.
which
Yes.
is,
And I mean, you
Nice.
said next
Yes.
year, but
Yes.
a 10-minute break, you could start that tomorrow with, you know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like some things.
You'll have to shift things
It's-
a little bit, but
You know, it's, we live in this world of, well, you got to do 990 minutes of instruction. And everybody's, but the time on learning police have never come to Sutton.
but
They've never actually showed up.
But this is also on instruction, because aren't we teaching kids how to manage things, how to manage your time, how to manage your stress? I mean, it all goes into this whole life skills thing. It's like having ceramics. Isn't that a great outlet for stress? Having art, you know, so
Yes.
Ceramics
all
can
of
be
that.
pretty stressful too.
Yes, it can be when your pot just goes.
But what I'm going to talk about in a minute in my report is what you're talking about, and stress and anxiety on our student population. That's going to be one of the things I'm going to note in my report. So, we ready to go to me?
Is that a good lead-in?
Yes, we are.
the next vision committee meeting is
October 17th.
Wednesday the
6 p.m.
17th at 6 PM.
And it's
Yes.
open to the public.
And please explain where in the school it is.
It's in the middle school team room, which is on the 2nd floor of the middle school side. It's the big room, and you'll see people walking around, and then we break up into groups. But if you don't have to be invited to come and participate. And we'd be more than willing, the more the merrier. Someone might come in and have a better idea that no one thought of.
Yes, more
Absolutely.
parents' involvement is fantastic.
Agreed.
Terrific. Superintendent's update?
Okay, at the last meeting, Pete mentioned that parents received a notice in 7th grade and they might not have known what this was all about. So there was a law passed in 2014, it became effective March 14, 2016, and it's a verbal screening tool for substance abuse disorders. We have to do it in 2 grades. We do it in 7th grade and 9th grade. Our 2 nurses at the high school, Donna and Michelle, took the course and they're both trained. We send out notices to parents, notify them that this is going to happen, and then when the screenings come up, we send them a second notice so that parents have the right to opt out of this. This is not a mandatory thing. It's mandatory that we do it, but it's not mandatory that a child participates. And there are 3 chances for parents and students to opt out of this. But it's designed to get an understanding of where students are. So they screen letters sent home. They conduct in a private room within the health office. No records are kept. Students may opt out at any time in the process. And it's included with other health screening during PE classes. The goal is to promote healthy conversations about substance use. It is shared with the Department of Public Health, the data with de-identification, so no names, no nothing, so no one can trace back who it is. But in this day and age, getting to students in 7th grade, getting some information about where kids are is pretty important. We did the update on the Vision Committee. I don't know if anybody saw, but the state has come out with a new report card. Did anybody see that in the news? And it was just rolled out to the now I'm sure there were some superintendents who were involved in the process, but the rank and file superintendents were provided a webinar of this new scoring of how we get a report card. And in the first year, Sutton did extremely well. I'm almost a little afraid that we did so well that because each year it's like if you're a salesman and you reach your sales goal, they raise your sales goal up. Well, that's kind of how it's so. And we're gonna, Mr. Goyette and I are gonna provide a presentation at our next school committee meeting so that we can just understand it a little bit more. But I just want to give you just a little bit of an idea of how we did. I've got a lot to say. The last year of the original MCAS test, and again, I don't want to emphasize testing. I've said since I got here, Sutton doesn't have to worry about test scores. We do fine. Everybody graduates. Everybody does very well. This year, off the charts. High school, those results, and I, you know, when we saw the original results, Ted's correct. A couple of kids did have to make up a test, but this 10th grade class, just one student, a student who has some additional needs, he's the only one who failed. So we don't have to do any makeups with this class. Just think about that time and effort of our guidance department. But to have 70% of our students advanced in in English, and where is it here? What am I looking? Oh, this is English language arts. I'm sorry. And in math, 73% were advanced in mathematics. And in both categories, we had 97% and 97% advanced and proficient. We just did exceptional. That's what makes me nervous about next year's report card, because we did so well. We have a new test, and that's why we should not overplace the value on a single test. When you have 100 kids take a test and 97 of them blow it out one year, it's a different group of kids taking it the next year. And so if 10 kids don't do as well, oh, wow, we went from 97 to 90 or 89%. What are you doing? Stop it. It's just, it's a measurement. And by the way, I talk about this all the time. This is for us. It's for the educator to look at. Parents should not be putting pressure on children about their MCAS score. It has no bearing on college. It has bearing on the teacher in the classroom. We take the data, we can go by teacher, exactly how kids score by teacher. We meet with the teachers, the principals meet with the teacher, we look at their data, and we look at where their strengths and weaknesses are on this one measure. That's how we should use it. But with that said, we did really well. We did really well this year. Our overall school district got an 81. Now, when all of you hear 81, what letter grade comes to your B minus? And so when I first saw this, I'm like, oh, we got an 81. I wonder what that means. And so it means that our score was, we were in the top 10%. We were 90th percentile. We ranked 344 out of 393 school districts. So we did extremely, extremely well. In other words, in this very fine print, we're on the next to last page of how well we did. So I'm going to go in much more detail, but the new assessment covers more than just the MCAS test. It covers the MCAS test, then they factor in growth. So how do kids grow from year to year? And we do very, very well there. They factor in chronic absenteeism. I'll talk about that in a minute. They factor in graduation rate. They factor in four-year graduation rate. They factor in dropout rate. They factor in how many advanced placement classes do you offer. So there's a bunch of different ways. But I'll save that for our next meeting so that I can be more thorough in how I present this.
Does BBT get a scorecard?
We had the best score in all of central Massachusetts, except Southborough beat us by a couple of points. Southborough's elementary, middle school. We were better than every school. Our score was better than every school in central Massachusetts. We did extremely well this year. And we should be very proud of that. But I can't sit here as a superintendent for 8 years as downplayed MCAS test. It's just a tool. And then say, look at how great we are this year. Because next year our score could be 50, or our score could be 40. It shifts around. But it was pretty exciting to see how well we did, and I think a lot goes to the work we've done as a district to get there. And I think when you factor in, one of the big areas that I look at is growth. Our kids, I don't think we emphasize the test as much as other places do. But as you see how our kids improve as they go through our system, we get a lot of points in that area. However, the one thing that really stood out to me is chronic absenteeism. And so what they do is so last year they said our chronic absenteeism rate was like 2.4%. So to get points, we had to drop to 1.6%. But our chronic absenteeism went up to like 4.5%.
How are they defining chronic?
If you miss more than 10% of the school year. And so when I look at attendance, I've always looked at our overall attendance, and our overall attendance is outstanding. We have more than 95% attendance throughout the year, all our schools.
So that 5% is the same kids.
But and it grew. So it goes to mental health, the pressure that kids are living under. We know all these kids. But when I asked for, okay, I want to see names, and when the amount of names came to me, I was really surprised at how many kids have missed more than 18 days. And no, it is not because a family went to Disney World, in March to avoid. This was, by and large, kids who are struggling with anxiety,
So we're
depression.
failing to meet their needs. So really, that's what this is.
And it almost doubled in a year. And so we have to look at that and say, and obviously tomorrow morning in our instructional leadership team meeting, we're going to put this data out. We're going to talk about what we're doing currently, and what can we do to shrink that down and get kids into school and help shorten those windows that they're not in school. And people think, well, you'd be surprised at some of the names of kids because you just don't know. Mm-hmm. You have no idea what a kid is feeling. And we've seen this time and again in the news about students that try to take their life or take their life, and you would never even know that this was the case. Now, I'm not saying that that's what this is about, but
Oh, but
there-
it gives you an opportunity to address an issue that we've identified, and that to me is huge. And that's what education to me is all about, is we're meeting the needs of the kids.
Yes, and so the one nice thing about this report, it looks at things a little bit differently. And a big part of this is our new Commissioner of Education, he wants to get away from this, it's all about the test. And he wants to get into, because he was the receiver in Lawrence for 6 years. And he's an amazing educator, and it's great that they put an educator like him as our commissioner. But he wants to focus on seeing kids start here and end up here. So anyway, we did very, very well. I think a lot can be attributed to leadership at the top, but that's just.
I'll laugh at that.
Mr. Durgan pokes a lot of fun at me. But again, it's the first year. Let's not over.
Ted, while you're on that point, could, one of the things I was gonna ask you on your report is the additional counselors that are in the school now that you had told us that weren't any cost to the town, and is that, now that we're a month in, is that?
It hasn't been approved by the legislature.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. I take it
No,
back.
no,
No.
no.
Oh, with U Inc.
Yes.
Yes, they're in.
I couldn't think of the name.
We have 2. They come in, and as if we need more. So that's a big bonus to our district. Yes, so they're in and they're working.
The chronic absenteeism
And that, yeah,
things like
that
that. I
could
mean,
be one
they
of
link
the
together. It's great that
pieces.
the timing on that is great, as we
It
just
is.
found out about something that we
It
weren't
is.
aware of.
If you come to our middle and high school and our elementary school, it's a little less formal in the elementary school, but every week in the high school, they meet every Monday morning, and they talk about students that are struggling and what we can do. Middle school, it's every other week, and in the elementary and early learning center, the adjustment counselor's offices are right next to the principal, so they have regular communication.
So if you're talking now, you'll be, I'm assuming if you've identified the fact that we've got kids who are chronic as far as being absentee, you're gonna be looking at that then too. Because sometimes you may not truly be able to identify this issue in the classroom, as we well know.
Right.
So this is just another piece to help us perhaps identify who might be at need.
Right, and you know, when you're in the middle of it, you can't see the forest through the trees. So you just, and then when you put a number on it and you say, oh my goodness, 30 kids
Yeah.
missed 18 days or more in the high school, it's a lot of kids that missed a lot of time. And it's not kids skipping school in Sutton. You know, that's just not, you know, there might be a tiny bit of that, but it's a small fraction. So it's good data to look at, and we will certainly look at how we shrink that down a bit. I already made all those points. This Thursday and Friday is a half-day PD day on Thursday, full day on Friday. Officer McGee doing some great stuff. You give him something, he goes. So he set up a parent safety night on Monday, the 22nd, which is our school committee meeting at 6 p.m. He's bringing the district attorney's office in, and the district attorney's office brings in a bedroom, a student's bedroom, where and the parents are taken through the bedroom, and they show them all the places where kids hide things and hide. I guess it's really a great exercise. They're also bringing in, he's also lined up someone who's going to address vaping and other types of things. And we really want we want as many parents as possible. We certainly, I want to see early learning center, elementary, middle school parents fill the place, because I don't think people understand how dangerous vaping is, and
how soon it starts.
yes. So that's going to be a great night.
Where is that?
That's going to be in the high school auditorium, high school, middle school auditorium,
What time?
6 p.m.
Perfect.
On Friday, on the PD day, I'm going to have a large number of custodians go down to the elementary school where we had that water dripping on the ceiling tiles, and I'm going to have them go through every classroom, go up above the ceiling tiles, clean everything out. We're trying to get a price to replace the insulation over the piping. But while they're up there, we're gonna probably take down some of that insulation as well, so that the plumbing company can come in and just replace the insulation, because some of it's wet from this incredibly moist, humid August and September. It's been very, very difficult. SEFT has a really ambitious group of parents now that are doing a number of things. I forgot to mention that the Oktoberfest at, forget the date on that.
October 20th.
October
Saturday.
20th, so if anybody wants to go to that. But SEFT has reached out to each principal and has offered to give them a grant of up to $10,000 for each school to buy something that's, they can use equipment-wise for the foreseeable future. So as an example, they, like Jess Merriman thought, she'd love to have a STEAM sensory type room for kids that, you know, we could set up in a classroom and they could do a lot of hands-on things. Maker space with 3D printers between the middle and high school. So there's a lot of, so that's fantastic. I thank Seth for that. I also received a letter from a parent who would like to, who would help any parent that's struggling to pay meals. And so if there was an issue going forward that with a family of need, problems with families, this person, family is going to pay any shortfalls for those families. So that,
Awesome.
so that was really great. The writing teams, we had talked about, you know, we haven't done a lot of cross-school activities, but they're meeting once a month. It's amazing when teachers across the district get together and ideas that come up. So Mr. Marcucci talks about his AP writing class and maybe going down into the younger grades and doing writing with kids. So there were a lot of good things coming from there as well. I know there's a lot of things here. I just some things in each building. Fifth grade band, 80 students. Fifth grade chorus, 15 students. You know, you ask about education in the world of testing. What are two things that Denise brings up? We just finished Dibbles testing, and now we're going to start MAP testing. You know, we do a lot of testing in education, and I'm starting to question the real value of it.
Welcome to my world.
They all talked about the common low-stakes writing. The Sutton Special Education Parent Advisory Council will have their first meeting on Wednesday, October 10th. So that's coming up. Facilities, you know, we've been killed with the rain, and we've canceled all kinds of games. I thank Grafton High School for allowing us to use their fields for homecoming, but we're gonna get another 3/4 of an inch or inch rain tomorrow. Our fields are really unplayable at the moment. This has been the first time since I've been here that the fields have been unplayable in the fall. And we did have drainage put in during the building project, but it's just been unprecedented rain. And just one other thing, we're looking at purchasing this vapor disinfectant machine that kills germs in classrooms. They cost about $1,500. And so as you get into, you know, the cold and flu season, you go in and you set this machine up in classrooms, and it sends out this film, whatever it does, and it, I don't know what it does, but we're looking at doing that to try to keep ahead of the germs. We're going to test it out. We're going to get one, test it out in the elementary early learning center. If we see some results that it's worth having, then we'll get a second one for the middle high school.
Do we do how good of a job do we do with little kids as far as dealing with hygiene? Because that would be a great place to start.
Well, you know,
Sorry, I'm just, you know, health-wise, I mean, it goes across, you know, you started early, it's.
I mean, when you're in the lower grades, I mean, that's all part of the curriculum and all part of what they do. I'll tell you.
I know,
When you get
it's hard,
those
it's hard with adults, how many adults do you see, yeah.
Yeah, it's.
So, I understand it's hard across the board, but again, it's just a great time to start talking to the kids about it.
They do a great, I mean, when you go into the little kids' grades in the preschool, it's all about the bathroom, you wash your hands, you do the
Sneeze in your elbow.
Yep.
sneeze in your elbow, and you asked about middle school class size, I know
Get the
everybody's
flu
getting
shot.
tired. Middle school, sixth grade has 121 students, seventh grade has 118 students, and eighth grade has 132 students.
Wow.
I will tell you, our middle school last year, they did very, very well on this new assessment. Our elementary school did okay, I mean, but again, I don't wanna, I just looking at that, even with those numbers, we did very, very well. And our elementary school did well. I wish our state would just not even share what eight-year-olds do on a computer-based test and compare them to other towns. I think that just does a disservice to little kids and puts this notion that
Freaks out parents.
it's like, you know, every kid at 8 should be 4 feet tall. It's just not how it works.
It's not right.
So anyway, and I think that's, I know I was trying to rush through, I think.
okay.
That was a lot to go over real quick with
It's
you.
a lot better than policies.
stuff.
Yeah.
New business, agenda items, action items. I just want to go through some of the things that are coming up. This Wednesday, the 3rd, 6 to 8 is the high school open house. On the 4th, there's an informational meeting for the grade 8 trip to Washington DC in the high school auditorium at 6. On the 10th, Early Learning Center and elementary school enrichment session starts. Parents, please, these are great. Kids love them. And the parents who come in and teach some of them love them even more.
Except for the one carpentry class with the little hammers, and they're right above my office. And 75 kids with little mini hammers. And
Let's see, on the 17th, 1:30 to 2 is Early Learning Center and elementary school PTO meeting. The 17th at 6 in the middle school team room is the Vision Committee. And I think that's it for meetings between now and our next. And then tomorrow, please, a town election, special town election. I think the polls are open 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Please get out and vote. Does anybody have anything else? New business? A motion?
So moved to
Second.
adjourn.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Terrific.